Hello, and welcome to Lease Query's Accountant's Angle, a podcast where our experts answer your most burning questions regarding accounting topics and upcoming new pronouncements. I am your new host, Jason Parker, Senior Alliance Manager here at Lease Query, and today I am very excited to be joined by Lisa Kaestle from Grant Thornton. Lisa is a director in Grant Thornton's accounting advisory practice and formerly spent time with the FASB helping to author the new lease guidance for ASC 842. Lisa, again, we're very excited to have you here today and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So with the end of 2022 upcoming, I figured a topic that would make sense for us to discuss today would be adoption policy memos. So as private companies complete their adoption of ASC 842, one of the overall projects they'll need to submit to their auditors when the auditors come in is a memo that outlines all of the judgments and decisions that they've made as they have gone about going through their adoption of 842. So first question for you, Lisa, how would you recommend clients begin thinking about overall documentation, especially given that we're right on the cusp of these audits?
Absolutely. And so, I completely agree with you. This is going to be one of the first requests that you will get from an auditor is what have you done and where is it documented, right? And so when we help our consulting clients, we typically help them complete two separate memos. First, an adoption memo. The adoption memo is focused really on what was done during day one, right? How did you get up and compliant? Who was involved in your implementation team? Did you select a software? How did you assess completeness? What about your practical expedient elections? All of those different considerations should be summarized in documented such that an auditor can understand exactly the process and the methodology that you went through to complete your adoption. Secondly, we work with our clients to make sure they have a detailed policy memo. The goal of the policy memo is to ensure that now that you've gotten compliant, you're able to remain compliant. And so this will talk about, how do you handle any sort of subsequent measurement events? What do you do now that you're under 842? One thing I want to stress is during this adoption process as a whole, you want to make sure that your methodology is set and is efficient, right? We're at your end. You don't want to be kind of spinning your wheels and thinking about how should we work through this project because you need to be wrapping it up soon. And so I think that that's something that these memos kind of help you focus on. They help you understand, okay, what are the different steps that we should be taking and that we need to make sure that we complete in order to ensure we are done and everything is accurate.
Yeah, that's excellent advice initially as well. What are some areas within, whether it's that policy memo that outlines methodology for long-term compliance, what are some areas of documentation that you feel like some private companies may not quite realize are much more important than maybe some of the obvious important documentation items, like which practical expedients you've elected and maybe the adoption method you're using?
Yes. Yeah. So, and I know Jason, you and I have talked a lot about this, but I think what sometimes flies under the radar a little bit is the day two considerations, right? And so right now, being year end of adoption year, everybody's so focused on what's my asset, what's my liability, what am I putting on the balance sheet? Don't get me wrong, that is very important. But the day after you adopt, which for most calendar year companies is 1/1/2022, so January 2nd, for instance, you now need to be compliant with 842 on a go-forward basis. So you need to be thinking about, do we have remeasurement events? Do we have lease modifications? Did we have an impairment? So I think this is where the policy document comes in and is extremely important to help ensure that, you essentially are remaining compliant and you're staying accurate, right? Your financials are going to be accurate. And so I think that sometimes, again, this gets a little bit overshadowed with adoption.
Yep. Yeah, you are correct. We do talk about this quite a bit because, again, that day two moniker, people always think that day two means, oh, well, I don't have to worry about this until the following year. But really, it's technically referring to day two as in the literal day after you capitalize those initial balances on the first day of adoption. So a lot of these are things that private companies have to deal with right now and really throughout this past year. Being somebody who, again, spends your time today as an experienced consultant trying to help companies make sure that they have all of these processes put in place in the long term. Again, you've gone through some of this already, but are there any other actions that you take explicitly when you start working with your clients just to help make sure that they have everything organized and prepared to have these memos ready for their audits?
Yeah, so our methodology, we've got essentially a lease playbook that's designed to walk our teams and our clients through a detailed number of steps that say this is kind of the most efficient way to go through adoption. And we know it's the most efficient way because we've done it hundreds and hundreds of times, right? So we've essentially taken all that we've learned during these adoptions and we continue to kind of trim it down and make it as quick and easy as possible. Tried and it's tested. And with that methodology and with these templates that we've now developed, we've also had the luxury of these templates have been tested via audits, right? So we use them for public companies. Well, they've been through detailed audits, be it by the Big Four or other accounting firms. And so we're very confident within our process that this is what your auditors are going to be looking for. And I think with that, it allows us to really make sure that we're digging in on the individual steps. And I will say, as a former auditor, and we always said back in the audit days, if it's not documented, it's not done. I think that's important because when you go through the documentation exercise, sometimes additional questions will come up, right? As part of that review process, you might have somebody else in your team say, hey, did you think about this? And so that's a really important step in your adoption process, is making sure that you're going through your full methodology, you're kind of putting pen to paper and making sure that you've thought through any of those potential gaps in any areas, that might raise a question from an auditor. Doing that ahead of time is going to make your audit process go so much smoother. And it's also going to make your adoption process be more efficient and more effective. So I think that that's really key. And that's certainly something that our teams focus on with our clients.
Yeah, that's spectacular. And I know the playbook, at least from what I've seen, I think is an excellent way for an organization, even if you feel like you have the bandwidth to do a lot of this work on your own. I think the organization that you guys and the direction you guys provide helps clients really just ensure that they're not missing anything, to your point. So, but that'll wrap us up for today, Lisa. Once again, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us on the podcast. Again, this is Lisa Kaestle from Grant Thornton. I am Jason Parker from Lease Query, and we will see everybody next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast series so you will actually get the following episodes sent straight to your email inbox. But once again, thank you for listening to today's Accountant's Angle, and we will see you next time.